Shalom Aleichem Internet. Today is Yud Bet B'Adar, the 22nd of February. My name is Sender Gajzinski, and here is a special Purim edition of the Weekly TorahByte. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Tetzaveh, and there's a very glaring omission in this week's Torah portion. Something is left out that since its advent, all the way through the end of the Torah, is never left out in a single parasha except this one. And that is the name of Moshe Rabbeinu himself. From the moment that he's born, in the beginning of the book of Shemot, all the way through to the end of the Torah, never is his name left out except in this week's Torah portion. The Medrash tells us the reason that his name is left out in this week's Torah portion is because of the backstory that was occurring at that time. The Jewish people had just sinned with the golden calf, and God turned to Moshe and said, I'm going to eradicate the people. Moshe turned around and said, God, if you're going to eradicate the people, I want to be gone as well. Erase me from your book. And God, having heard Moshe's pleas, decided to forgive the people on the day that has eventually becomes Yom Kippur, but to always commemorate Moshe's willingness to sacrifice his entire legacy and memory on behalf of his people, one parsha has his name removed from it. It does not mean, however, that Moshe is not present in this week's Torah portion. In fact, just the opposite. Moshe's presence is in this week's Torah portion more than in any other Torah portion, because the very first word of the Torah portion is Ve'ata, and you, Moshe, shall command the people, and the entire length of the parsha is God talking directly to Moshe, so that Moshe's presence is there from the beginning to the very end of the Torah portion. And just you have to be able to dig a little bit deeper. That brings us to the great holiday coming up, the holiday of Purim. Megillat Esther, the famous text that we read on Purim, is one of 24 volumes that make up the canonized Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, the Jewish Bible. What makes it stand unique among the rest of the books of Tanakh is the fact that God's name is not mentioned in the Megillah, not even once. Which actually reflects, in a certain sense, the Purim story itself. Because as the story plays out, goes through all the series of events that leads to the great victory of the Jewish people, one could look at the story and say, oh, God wasn't involved here. There's no presence of God here. It just happened to be a random occurrence of events that led to a positive outcome on behalf of the Jewish people. One would have to be completely foolish, however, to not recognize God's hand in the Purim story. While it may not be like the 10 plagues of the Pesach or the miracle of oil of Hanukkah, God's hand is in the Purim story as much as it is in any other moment in Jewish history, and bringing about our salvation. We just need to be able to look one layer deeper, because as with most other things in life, what you see is not always what you get. This beautiful message of the Purim story, which is that you need to dig a little bit deeper sometimes to get to the true reality of things, is actually found in basically every tradition that we have on this holiday. For example, it's the reason that we wear masks. On the surface, you see one thing, but really, the reality is something completely different. It also is the secret of the Hamentash. Now, here is a very common misconception. The word Hamentash has nothing to do with Haman. I mean, it's enough already that his name is the most look forward to word in the Megillah. That's the moment we get to make all the noise and everything. But in our efforts to blot out the name, would we really go ahead and name this delicious sweet pastry that everybody looks so forward to on the day of Purim after that man? I mean, how much Haman loving are we going to engage in on the day of Purim? Really, the name actually comes from Yiddish. And the word is Hamentash. Man is the Yiddish word for poppy seed, which was the go-to filling of the Hamentash way back when. And tash means pocket. The point being that you would take the poppy filling and wrap it in a layer of dough all around so that the poppy filling would be pocketed and concealed and hidden within the outer layer of dough, thereby putting forward that same message and idea of the Purim story, which is that what is on the surface is not really what's at the sweet core of it all. It later became Hamentash because nobody knew what Muntash meant. And right away you made the Muntash. Oh, Hamentash. Oh, of course. Haman. And that became the three-cornered hat and the ear of Haman in Israel, whatever it is. Now you know the rest of the story of the Hamentash. But coming back to our point, and I need to put on my rabbi hat for this one, is that the message of Purim resonates in every moment of our lives. Sometimes things are going great. And sometimes things are not going so great. On the surface, it seems like there is big trouble. What Purim tells you is that sometimes in order to be able to maintain your joy and your happiness, you need to be able to dig beneath the surface, go 1 or 2 layers down, and see the way things really are. Because God is always there for us. Sometimes it's all right there on the surface. And sometimes it's behind the scenes. But knowing this and focusing in on this helps us maintain our happiness even if we can't understand it at the moment and we can't get beneath the surface at this present time. Wishing you a very perceptive, joyous, happy, and delicious week. Parashat Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minim v'zeines. Happy Purim!